Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypno-coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work, and it would please me if you did, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Today, I want to talk about avoiding mental and emotional clutter. Now, in the past, I've frequently talked about how bad a thing I believe physical clutter is. When your environment is full of stuff, what happens is that your stuff begins to take on a life of its own. Every time you walk past a pile of stuff that you know you have to deal with somehow, that stuff kind of reaches out and subtracts a bit of energy from your life. If you live with a lot of clutter, then there is a substantial energetic subtraction from your life. I've actually had clients who were formally diagnosed with major depression who were able to recover enough energy to have that diagnosis lifted by decluttering their physical environment. Now, we live with physical clutter for a variety of reasons, and I've recorded other podcasts about what they are. You'll also find a blog entry on my website called The Victor of the Kitchen Sink, which is a longer and more detailed discussion of physical clutter and how to avoid falling prey to it. But today I want to talk about a different sort of clutter. I want to talk about living with your mind cluttered with ideas and opinions, and your heart cluttered with emotional baggage. Just like physical clutter, nothing good comes from hoarding these things. Let's start with mental clutter. Do you have opinions? I do. In fact, years ago, I realized that I had opinions about just about every topic that occurred to me. I had an opinion about highway construction, about the watering demands of avocado farms in California, and about elections taking place in France. The problem with all of these opinions is that they're not worth much. I know almost nothing about highway construction. I have a vague sense that water-starved California might do better growing different crops, but my understanding of the issue is far from adequate. I don't like some of the candidates who tend to run in French elections, but on the other hand, I know only a limited amount about what they stand for. So, in fact, my head is cluttered with opinions that, on the whole, aren't worth much. Now, I have other opinions that are much more substantial. As an officer of the National Guild of Hypnotists, I have opinions about the hypnotic profession that are carefully considered and which do matter as they affect what I do as a member of the advisory board of that organization. As a member of the ordained mainstream clergy, I have opinions about the state of my denomination and about the nature of contemporary theological education. And as I've held denominational office, my opinions on these matters do have relevance. Therefore, about 5 years ago, as I was considering the whole theme of decluttering one's lifestyle, which is something I usually recommend, I realized that I needed to declutter my opinions as well. Now, I did this by making a distinction between the opinions I held that mattered and were therefore worth something versus those that were really just idle notions that were not well thought out. It actually proved relatively easy to sort opinions into one of these two mental bins, the ones that mattered versus the ones that did not. Now, in Stoic philosophy, an ancient philosophy I subscribe to, we distinguish between things that are in three clear categories. The first concerns the things we control, pretty much our behaviors and thoughts, and even there, our control is not absolute. The second are the things we can influence, although not control. I can't control what happens in a major election, but I can influence it by how I vote. And the final category is that large group of things that we can neither control nor influence. And if we have to deal with something that's in that third group, something that is beyond our control or influence, all we can do is use it as a path for self-improvement. As is often said in the modern Stoic movement, the obstacle is the way. As an example, I may not be able to do anything about the fact that my wife is sick. And no, she's not sick of me, thank you very much. But she is ill, therefore spinning my emotional wheels worried about the fact that she's sick is not a productive use of my time. Instead, I need to ask myself that given that she is ill, how can I be the best partner possible for her? That's within the realm of what I can control. And therefore that question, how can I be the best partner for my ill wife, points the way to my own self-improvement. Well, dealing with mental clutter is like that. When I realize that I have an opinion about something, I ask myself if the opinion is meaningful. Do I know anything substantial about what I am pondering? Have I educated myself about the issues? Does the opinion affect my behavior now or plausibly in the future? If the answers are affirmative, then I have a meaningful opinion. I could still be wrong, but something could potentially happen because I held the opinion and therefore they matter. That's not mental clutter. That form of opinions are not mental clutter. On the other hand, I have an opinion about whether salmon should be planted in Illinois rivers. Now, I know next to nothing about that. What kind of salmon? What rivers? What will it cost? Why would one want to do it? Realizing that I know very little about the issue, I conclude that my opinion does not matter and should be disregarded. And this is how you avoid mental clutter. You don't need to have an opinion about everything. That may take some getting used to. But once you develop the discipline of formulating an opinion only about those things you are knowledgeable about, it quickly becomes automatic because the benefits are obvious. You see, your deeper mind doesn't realize that worries you can't do anything about are pointless. Instead, it produces the stress hormones and elevates your metabolism in harmful ways, even if what you're focused on is something as silly as planting fish in a river that you've never seen. Once you start limiting the amount of mental energy and focus you give to such matters, you will harvest an uptick in your sense of well-being. Now, avoiding emotional clutter is much the same. Just as you ask yourself if your opinion is meaningful when you think of an intellectual issue, when you experience an emotional issue, you subject it to a similar interrogation. Now, we can't control how we feel. Emotions are a primitive information system in the brain. They simply are. And recognizing what emotion you are feeling is wise. However, restrict the emotions you act on to those that passed a simple test. Does the emotion encourage me to do something worthwhile? I may feel angry about things that happened to me in my childhood, and knowing that I'm angry about those things is helpful information. However, acting in anger will almost always get a person in trouble. When I consider if I should think about, rehearse in my mind, relive, or otherwise ponder an emotion, the question I ask myself is what can come of that feeling? Will it encourage me to do something positive, or am I just spinning my emotional wheels, stewing in the evil brew of things I resent? If a feeling doesn't encourage me to do something that is reasonable or good, that feeling needs to be noted but then dismissed. To do this, I use a technique called thought stopping. Thought stopping was developed in 1952 at the School of Psychiatry of the University of Chicago. The idea is a simple one. When a thought is ricocheting around the mind and I realize that it's an unhelpful thought because it's giving rise to unhelpful feelings, in this case, a feeling that doesn't encourage something positive, I change the channel in my mind. One way to do this is to imagine a bright red shiny stop sign and silently say the word stop in my mind. I break up the pattern. Many customizations are possible, but the point is you do not allow the pointless rumination to continue. Then I try to focus on something that does matter, big or small. I get a cup of fine coffee and judge the flavor. I pick up a cat. I read a book. I watch a video. Anything but sitting there stewing in my own negative juices. When we see someone who is just consumed by anger and hate, we've got someone whose mind is cluttered with emotions that they need to simplify. What you should entertain upon the throne of your mind are those things that encourage wholesome behaviors, because just sitting there being mad or upset hurts only you. As an example, imagine that I'm feeling bad because someone insulted me. Well, the worst thing I can do is sit around and stew in my resentment. That hurts my body and it hurts my spirit. On the other hand, if I can use that emotional pain as motivation to try to clear the air with the person who insulted me, perhaps it was a misunderstanding, or figure out how to avoid putting myself in such a situation again, those would be wholesome results. And so the feeling wouldn't be a cluttering feeling. But if you just accumulate resentments and never resolve them positively, well, then you've got a world-class case of emotional clutter. Avoid mental and emotional clutter like the plague. Like physical clutter, nothing good comes from them. Simplify. Invest in your opinions that matter. Entertain the emotions that lead to positive outcomes. Let the rest go. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out. Stay well and stay safe.